Please welcome Donald Trump.
A warm evening settles over Los Angeles. Cameras sweep across the studio of Jimmy Kimmel Live, turning like enormous mechanical eyes, capturing every angle. The house is packed, the audience laughs, chats. Some hold up signs. Others record Instagram stories. Everything looks predictable. Any minute now, the host will walk out, crack a few jokes about life in Hollywood, mention the latest scandals, and the night will end like it always does, with a bit of light irony and a couple of viral moments. But this night has a completely different script. The stage door opens. Jimmy Kimmel appears confident as always, walking lightly with his signature grin. The cameras close in on his face, the bright stage lights washing over him. For the first 5 minutes, everything seems normal. Jokes, applause, a few lines about celebrities. But if you look closely, his expression becomes sharper, more focused. And then, in an instant, he stops smiling. A pause. The laughter in the room dies at once. No one yet realizes that this is no longer a show. This is about to become a direct attack. And that right here, live, in front of millions of viewers, a comedian is about to become the man who will try to break a myth. The music cuts abruptly, as if someone pulled the plug. The camera pushes closer. Kimmel's voice sounds different now. Low, steady, stripped of all humor. Let's stop pretending that we don't know who Donald Trump really is. Behind him, a massive screen lights up in shades of gray. Old photos begin to appear. New York, in the 1980s. Newspaper headlines about bankruptcies, court documents. These stories, everyone knows them. Kimmel says, but everyone acts like they don't, as if silence makes them disappear. He begins to read out a list. Casinos that went bankrupt, investors who lost millions, workers who were never paid. With every word, his tone grows harsher. You think this is a story about success? He continues, no. This is the story of a man who spent his whole life dodging responsibility and learning to turn failure into spectacle. The front rows stare at the stage, wide-eyed. Some pull out their phones and start recording. Behind Kimmel, the screen is now filled with a torrent of old photographs, flashing one after another like blows. And then Kimmel says, we've gotten used to him always walking away untouched. But he isn't a business genius. He's an illusion. And it's time to start calling things by their real name. A short, nervous laugh ripples through the crowd, but quickly dies out. From this moment on, the show is no longer entertainment. It turns into a direct, unfiltered speech, the kind America hasn't heard on national television for years. Kimmel straightens up, and in that moment, it feels as if the entire studio disappears. The camera slowly pushes forward, shutting out the noise of the audience until there is only his voice. Behind him, the images on the screens keep changing. Luxury hotels, gleaming casinos, construction sites, and then empty, abandoned halls, rows of dark lamps, rusting signs. Look at this path, he says. Every tower, every company, every casino, this isn't a story of success. It's a story of how money turns to dust and promises to ash. He names them Atlantic City, bankruptcy after bankruptcy. The visuals grow darker. Headlines give way to footage of people standing helplessly at locked doors. And every single time it collapsed, he found a way to spin it as a victory. That's his real talent, not creating, but convincing you that destruction is success. The room falls silent. Cameras occasionally catch faces in the audience. Someone staring in disbelief. Someone covering their mouth, as if unable to believe they're hearing this on a late-night show. Kimmel goes on, and then he did the same thing to the country. Empty promises, loud words, and behind them chaos. A show built on the bones of reality. Up to this point, his words were aimed at Donald Trump himself. Then, suddenly, Kimmel shifts focus to his son. And, of course, the heirs. the ones who grew up inside that illusion. They believe that if they scream loud enough, the truth will disappear. He pauses. Look at Donald Trump Jr. He's the embodiment of what happens when you choose spectacle over honesty, the heir to chaos. Behind him, the screens switch to family photos, lavish homes, private jets, hunting trips, parties, and instead of admitting that it's all a myth, he defends it as though it's a fortress. But the truth is, Kimmel adds, it's nothing more than a house of cards. The reaction in the studio is immediate. Some people leap to their feet applauding, others boo loudly, phones raised high to record. The sounds blend together. The cameras pan across a divided audience, some shouting, "Yes!" and others quietly shaking their heads. The next morning, America wakes up to a very different mood. What seemed like just another late-night monologue, just another joke, has become a national headline. Major newspapers, news websites, and bloggers publish breaking stories. Trump Jr. furious after Kimmel's on-air attack. Some reports claim Donald Trump Jr. was so outraged that, according to insiders, he called the police demanding they take action against the host. TV crews gather outside the ABC studio. Reporters read from their notes. He was shouting into the phone, calling it slander and a provocation. On social media, screenshots begin to circulate allegedly from messaging groups of Trump's team, debating how to respond to the attack. But the internet is a merciless machine. Just hours later, the memes arrive. One of the most viral shows, Trump Jr. holding a phone with the caption, 911, help, a comedian hurt my feelings. The image spreads to millions of accounts, spawns parodies on YouTube and TikTok. At first, it all seems like a joke, but beneath the humor lies a serious point. An attempt to stop criticism through law enforcement has become a symbol of fear. Within hours, the internet turns into a boiling cauldron. At first, it's just short clips uploaded by viewers, 30 seconds where Kimmel delivers his line about illusion and the audience freezes. Then those clips spread across the world, and by morning, YouTube and TikTok algorithms can no longer contain the flood. What begins as entertainment becomes something else. Thousands of channels post breakdowns, creators analyzing every word, others slowing down the footage to show Kimmel's expression and the reaction in the crowd. Memes spread at a speed faster than news. 911, he made fun of me, becomes the phrase of the day. On TikTok, the monologue is remixed with heavy rock, classical symphonies, rap beats. Millions of comments appear under those videos. A second wave begins. Celebrities enter the fray. Actors, directors, musicians post their own videos supporting the host. Comedians have always been the voice of truth. This isn't just a joke, it's a mirror. Others take the Trumps' side, accusing the show of turning into a witch hunt. Every tweet is a spark, and each spark ignites another fight. By that evening, primetime news broadcasts are showing long clips from the show, reading out the angriest tweets on air. The country splits into two camps. In just one night, what was supposed to be an ordinary entertainment show has turned into a battlefield over truth, over power, over who controls the story. 2 days later, the line outside the studio stretches around the block. People hold signs, TV cameras roll non-stop, bloggers stream live from the sidewalks. Everyone wants to see what Kimmel will say in his first show since the scandal. Inside, the tension is so heavy it feels physical. When Kimmel steps on stage, the audience erupts in applause. The cameras pull wide, the whole room is on its feet. He stands, waiting for the noise to fade, and then he says, "I heard someone actually called the police over my monologue. Well, if they show up, I'll bake them a pie." The room bursts into laughter, but the laughter dies quickly. because everyone can see the jokes are over. Kimmel lowers his eyes to the cue cards in his hands. Then he sets them aside. His voice hardens. Each word lands like a shot. When the truth hurts so much that you pick up the phone and call the cops, that's not comedy anymore. That's fear. That's a diagnosis. That is proof you are terrified of the truth. He pauses. The silence is so complete that you can hear someone's pen drop on the floor. And then, after those few seconds of stillness, the studio explodes with applause. People stand and cheer. Some yell, "Bravo!" Others laugh and cry at the same time. This isn't a show anymore. This has become a public statement, one that has split the country even further. After Kimmel's second blow, the nation's media landscape is never the same. Within hours, major networks rewrite their programming schedules. The entire news cycle revolves around what happened in that ABC studio. Morning, day 1. News programs open with the headline, "Jimmy Kimmel versus Trump Jr., the night that shook TV." Anchors solemnly play clips of Kimmel staring into the camera while the crowd sits in silence. Then live reports come in from New York, Los Angeles, Miami. On the streets, people argue, share clips on their phones. CNN runs an emergency broadcast. At the round table sit 5 experts, a media analyst, a psychologist, a political commentator, a former late-night producer, and a lawyer specializing in free speech. Together, they agree. We have just witnessed the moment when comedy stopped being entertainment and became an act of reckoning. Fox News answers with a different spin, focusing on an attack on the president's family, showing footage of Trump supporters calling Kimmel a Hollywood liar. MSNBC goes even further, airing nearly an hour-long segment cutting archival footage of the Trumps, over 40 years together with Kimmel's speech. The newspapers follow. The Washington Post front page blares, "The comedian who said what politicians feared to say." The New York Times publishes a detailed analysis, "The Kimmel Effect, when a joke turns into a threat." Time magazine hits the stands with a stark cover, a close-up of Kimmel's face at the exact moment of his monologue. Beneath it, a single caption, "Truth hurts." By midweek, podcasts and YouTube documentaries begin to appear. Some dive into the history of late-night television. Others draw parallels to Watergate. On social media, a new wave forms, the Stand with Kimmel movement. People upload videos of themselves repeating his words, tagging the exact moment he said, "Fear of the truth." Each new video only adds fuel to the fire. At this point, it's clear, this is no longer a media scandal. It has become a cultural phenomenon. With each passing day, the story of Kimmel's monologue stops being just news and grows into a national debate that grips the entire country. The first wave, the streets and the universities. In the lecture halls of Harvard, Stanford, NYU, every seat is taken. On the screen, the recording of the broadcast. On stage, professors of law and journalism debating where satire ends and responsibility begins. In one crowded room, a student asks, "If a comedian tells the truth, but it hurts someone, should that be punishable?" The hall erupts into noise, splitting in half. Across the country, protests spread. On Times Square in New York, thousands hold signs reading, "Truth is not a crime," and "Comedy is not a felony." Outside ABC studios in Los Angeles, the crowd chants, "Speak, speak." In Miami, Chicago, and even in small towns, spontaneous debates break out on park benches, bus stops, and in bars. The second wave podcasts and talk shows. Popular hosts invite lawyers, retired judges, historians. In one podcast, a well-known retired judge says, "If we start calling the police for every word we don't like, there won't be enough prisons to hold everyone." In another, A psychologist explains, that phone call wasn't about defending honor. It was fear. Fear that the mask might finally come off. The third wave politics. During congressional sessions, reporters bombard senators with questions. One says, "Yes, this country has many problems, but if we start punishing people for words, we stop being America." Another replies, "I don't condone the reaction, but a host also has to understand that words have consequences." The fourth wave, philosophy and culture. PBS airs a special series. Art historians explain how satire has always been society's way of speaking the truths that politicians fear to confront. Archival footage plays Charlie Chaplin, Lenny Bruce, George Carlin, those who once broke the mold and were accused of the same thing. The fifth wave, the people themselves. Ordinary people who never watched Jimmy Kimmel live now go online to find that episode, just to see what everyone is talking about. And when they do, many admit, "We thought it was just a late-night show, but that was a moment of truth." All of these streams converge into one massive current. The country is arguing with itself, and everyone begins to understand this is no longer about a comedian and a political family. This is about whether America can remain a place where things can still be called by their real name. The final act of the documentary begins with silence. On screen, the empty studio where it all started. The lights are out. Tables and chairs sit under dust covers. The camera slowly moves between the rows of seats, and then we hear it. Someone presses play on the broadcast, and that same voice that changed everything fills the empty room. The first layer, the numbers. 54 million views in the first 72 hours. Over 12 million comments. 30 major investigations launched because of that night. More than 300 new media publications tied to that monologue. But the numbers are only part of the story. The second layer, the human stories. A montage. In a small town, a family gathers at night to watch the replay, arguing over dinner afterward. Somewhere in Chicago, a teenager films himself on his phone. "I want to study journalism. I want to speak like that." In New York, a woman working in a newsroom admits, "After that night, I finally remembered why I believe in this profession." The third layer, the reaction of power. Footage of the White House and of Trump Jr.'s office. Angry social media posts. Late-night phone calls to aides. Hastily drafted press statements. Reporters explain how, in the days that followed, Trump Jr. avoided the public, while his lawyers sent out a flurry of threatening letters. The fourth layer, the media aftermath. Snippets from news shows and podcasts show that Kimmel's speech dominated headlines for more than 3 weeks. Leading analysts write that this night was a watershed moment, the moment comedy stopped being just a joke. The fifth layer, the symbol. The narrator's voice concludes. Sometimes one broadcast is enough to bring down a myth that took decades to build. This isn't a story about a late-night host. It isn't a story about a political family. This is a story about how truth can appear in the most unexpected form, and once spoken, it cannot be stopped. The camera rises, showing the empty stage. The studio lights slowly come on again, but now for a different show. And then the screen fades to black. On the dark screen, white text appears. That night changed everything. And the country will never be the same. One last second, pure silence. The studio stands empty. The noise of the broadcast has long since faded. And yet, in that quiet space, you can still hear the echo of that night. What happened in those 40 minutes live on air spilled far beyond the walls of a television studio. It was more than a clash between a host and a political dynasty. It became a story of what happens when a country stays silent for too long, and someone finally decides to say aloud what everyone else has been avoiding for years. That night revealed two Americas. One, the America that prefers to live in illusions, where image matters more than facts, and spectacle more than reality. And another, the America that, in a single moment, decided it no longer wanted to be silent. Because if you think about it, nothing Kimmel said was new. These facts have been known for years. But there is something different, something powerful about truth spoken live on national television, straight into the camera, without fear. In that moment, before millions of viewers, the line between comedy and journalism, between entertainment and conscience, disappeared. And that night, the world saw that words still matter. For days afterward, the country argued, fought, divided into camps. Some called the police, some made memes. But beneath all the noise, one simple truth remained. If the truth makes you so uncomfortable that you try to silence it, that means it hit exactly where it needed to. This story is not about a brave comedian. It is about a society that has grown tired. Tired of images being sold as reality. Tired of myths that are manufactured for decades. Tired of being afraid to speak plainly. And that is why this broadcast became more than just a broadcast. Sometimes one night is enough for a facade built over decades to begin to crumble. Sometimes a single sentence is enough for people to finally see that the emperor has no clothes. Yes, tomorrow the usual talk shows will return. Yes, life will go on as it always has. But after that night, it is impossible to forget how fragile illusions really are. That studio, that applause, those words they have now become part of history. The history of the moment when someone dared to say out loud what so many others had been afraid to admit. And if the meaning of that night could be distilled into a single thought, it would be this. As long as there are those unafraid to speak, the spectacle may go on, but the truth will always find its way to the stage. The last shots show the studio as it slowly fills with the light of a new day. The voiceover delivers the closing words. This broadcast proved something. Words are not just jokes. Words are sparks. And when those sparks land on dry ground, they can burn down the sets and backdrops where lies have hidden for decades. After that, it's only a matter of time. The truth has been spoken, and it will never be silenced again.